I would like to welcome the WAIT team to Montserrat. It is wonderful to have you in our country. We thank you for your foresight in agreeing to partner with the Ministry of Agriculture and the coastal and marine communities in Montserrat. The critical and vital resources of our oceans are, of course, important not just now, but for the future of Montserrat and for mankind. The Blue Halo Initiative is on a journey, one that can directly impact our national livelihoods now and well into the future. We recognize that it is our benefit to work hard for healthy oceans in order to sustain our vital fish stocks, the marine life and biodiversity, and of course, the livelihoods of our communities. We are all aware that oceans are a shared resource. So we also recognize the opportunity provided by the Blue Halo Initiative. We will seize that opportunity in terms of providing leadership with our regional neighbors in managing our waters to ensure that our seas and oceans are safe and secure. The way in which Montserrat and its neighbors manage our ocean's resources will directly impact prospects of sustainable development in our small islands and developing states. Therefore, it is in our own interests to work cooperatively on trying to manage this shared resource and make sure that we can benefit by using them in a way that allows us to thrive. I am expecting the whole community, as much as possible, including fishermen, scuba divers, and the law enforcement, and all our people to cooperate and play an active role in the success of this process. Our island is becoming increasingly attractive to conservationists and all who care about our earth and who care about Montserrat. That's why we wish for Montserrat to be a model of good stewardship of our natural resources.
The WAIT Institute was founded by Mr. WAIT in the early 2000s. I'm very sorry that he is not able to be here today in person for the signing, but he sends his best wishes and he is incredibly enthusiastic about launching this project and working with the island, the government, and the people of Montserrat. And he will be visiting hopefully sometime soon later this year. The WAIT Foundation began to focus on restoring oceans to their full productivity. That is the mission of the WAIT Foundation. And the foundation gives grants to NGOs that do groundbreaking ocean conservation work around the world. The Institute started out as an exploration and discovery organization, mapping the wreckage of the Titanic, doing an enormous search for Amelia Earhart's plane, sending submarines to the Arctic and to the Gulf after the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. It's a lot of really important research with wonderful scientific organizations. I joined the WAIT Foundation 3 years ago, and as their director of science, I managed a lot of the grants, helped them work on their strategy and be successful in their endeavors. And I started the Blue Halo Barbuda project while I was at the foundation. The project was going so well that Mr. WAIT said, we should try to see if we can replicate this in other places. So along with the foundation board of directors, I drafted a business plan for what that might look like and spent the second half of last year visiting different islands, trying to figure out what would be the best fit for where to launch next. And I was thrilled when I came to Montserrat and met many of the people in this room and realized that Montserrat would be an ideal place to have as our second site, our second partner. So that is a little bit about the history of the foundation and the Institute. So the Institute then switched from being focused on exploration and discovery to focusing on our new mission of empowering communities to restore their oceans. So that's what we are focused on now.
I just wanted to use this occasion to put into context the issues of the environment which have been tackled in Montserrat. This is not first initiative. It is a historic initiative because it's going where no one else has gone before. But in Montserrat, we have had Darwin, you have heard of that. We have had the RSPB, and they were interested in the Center Hills restoration and the feral livestock. We have had Fauna and Flora International here. They were into some of our marine ecosystems inland. We have had Coral Key. We still have Coral Key here represented, and they're looking at natural resources. I want to acknowledge the representative there. And we have had the Commonwealth Foundation into civil capacity building, and the Doral Wildlife Fund. They have been saving our mountain chicken. That is still ongoing. And we have had the UCOT Forum in association with the National Trust, and they have been involved in environmental impact, and all of the program they've supported with the National Trust, represented here by Mrs. Francis. Most of those, as you can see, were concerned with the terrestrial environment, the land side. Waite Institute is taking us into the marine side of Montserrat. That is what is historic about it, and also that it is such a mammoth task. And I want to applaud them for coming, because they recognize from the application process, which was rather, should I say, difficult, even for me, that Montserrat needed to recognize that the size of our property is not just the land base of Montserrat, which is 40 square miles or whatever. We have 10 times that amount of property in the seas surrounding Montserrat, up to the limits of the exclusive economic zone, which we have been granted under the United Nations Conference for Law of the Sea. And we have not even moved our territorial sea from the 3-mile limit yet, although we have plans to take it up to the 12-mile limit, which I hope is part of what the ongoing work will also inform. So we are into an area of a major socioeconomic benefit for Montserrat, both in terms of the livelihood of our fishermen, our health, our food security, and the nutrition, as I prefer fish of every other protein. And I know some of you are advised by your doctors to try to keep off the red meat. So we're going to make sure you can do so for a long time, and also that your children can do so. In Montserrat, we have a legal framework which is pretty much limited to fisheries. I hope that an outcome from this endeavor is that we can move our mechanism or administrative arrangements to a more overarching embrace that is in the CARICOM and OECS. They have ahead of us. They have ocean governance units which take account of more than just fishing. And of course, they take account of protection, conservation, and zoning, which is what Waite is bringing all of this modernized way of dealing with the oceans to Montserrat. So we're going to catch up. This is a historic first time. Not that we have not been thinking about it or doing a little bit about it, but we have not had a concerted effort at doing it and embodying or codifying that work in the laws of Montserrat, and that is the intention. So the socio-economic value is enormous with the zoning, with the fishing, and I want to include that I hope they look at zoning a spot for the boatyard, although we already have one identified. They can look at it again and tell us if it's going the right way. I rather like the sophistication of Waite, and I hope that they bring all of that to the table and we can provide some very useful facilities for fishermen. We have to think about our beaches. I like the mention of Mr. Waite saying that beaches are littered, and I hope that we go beyond just cleaning up litter from our beaches in Montserrat, and that we actually look at manicuring our beaches so they serve the purpose that we want them to serve, what little beaches we have for tourists and our visitors. So this great relationship is really groundbreaking. with benefits in the short and long term for us and our children. We'll catch up to CARICOM and the OECS, as I said. So in closing, I want to thank Dr. Ayanna Johnson and the team. This is the second time a team has come. I'm glad that this team is now going to be fostering to build their Montserrat relationships and to lay down some roots here, perhaps. I want to thank God for the guidance and the wisdom He gave you to see that this need was real in Montserrat. I want to thank Governor Davis, who is unfortunately not here, but he'll be hosting the team this evening at Government House, for assisting us with the referrals of the technical details and legal matters to FCO. I want to thank the Attorney General, who I call the Chief Law Lord of Montserrat, for making sure that we were able to agree a document even after some last-minute changes. And I want to thank DFID for seeing the wisdom, not for giving money this time, just for seeing the wisdom of us spending money that is other than DFID's money in Montserrat. Dr. Johnson, thank you very much. You were a tough negotiator. We'll remain engaged with you, and I want to put the National Trust on notice that as part of these arrangements, we have agreed that we'll establish a financing mechanism beyond 4 years. And we have identified the National Trust as our partner in that, as we think that the funding outside of government will be able to continue this in the vein that it started, an international NGO with our #1 national NGO, and that you will decide what you do. Government will lead in policy, you will lead in implementation and the relationships you build with the people you want to implement the work on Montserrat.